When my son sent me an email saying, "Don't come to my wedding, watch it on Livestream," after I spent 23 years raising him alone, I made a decision that would either save our family or destroy it forever. But what happened when I confronted the person who was really pulling the strings behind my son's cruel rejection? My hands shake as I read the email on my phone screen for the third time this morning. Don't come to my wedding, watch it on Livestream, okay? 23 years of raising Marcus alone, working double shifts at the diner to pay for his college, and this is what I get back. The words blur as tears fill my eyes. But I force myself to stay calm. I need to understand what's happening before I react. I dial Marcus's number with trembling fingers. He picks up on the fourth ring, his voice sounding distant and cold in a way I've never heard before. "Hi, Mom," he says. Like he didn't just break my heart into a million pieces. I take a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. "Marcus, honey, I got your email. I think there might be some mistake. You want me to watch your wedding on a computer?" The silence stretches so long I wonder if the call dropped. Finally, he sighs heavily. "Mom, Stefan and I talked about it. We decided we want a really small ceremony. Just immediate family only." My chest tightens like someone is squeezing my heart. "But sweetheart, I am your immediate family. I'm your mother. I changed your diapers, taught you to ride a bike, stayed up all night when you had the flu." My voice cracks despite my efforts to stay composed. "I know, Mom, but it's complicated. Stefan's family has some concerns about the guest list." Concerns? What kind of concerns could they possibly have about me? I've been nothing but supportive since Marcus told me he was gay 3 years ago. I drove him to his first Pride parade, when he was too scared to go alone. What kind of concerns, Marcus? Have I done something wrong? I ask, genuinely confused. Another long pause. They think our relationship is a little too close. They're worried you might get emotional during the ceremony. Too close? I raised this boy by myself after his father died in that car accident when Marcus was only 5. Of course we're close. That's what happens when it's just the two of you against the world for 18 years. Get emotional? Of course I'll get emotional. It's my son's wedding day. That's what mothers do. Marcus's voice gets quieter, almost like he's afraid someone might hear him. Stefan's dad, Philip. He thinks it would be awkward having you there. He said it might cause drama. Philip Dioval. I've only met the man twice, and both times he looked at me like I was something stuck to the bottom of his expensive shoes. He owns some big law firm downtown and lives in one of those mansion neighborhoods where the houses all look like museums. Drama? Marcus? When have I ever caused drama? I've bent over backwards to make Stefan feel welcome in our family. I know, Mom, but this is just easier for everyone. You can still see everything on the live stream. It'll be almost like being there. Almost like being there. Almost like watching my only child, the person I love most in this world, promise his life to someone else through a computer screen like I'm some stranger who doesn't matter. Marcus, please don't do this. I've been looking forward to your wedding day since you were little. Remember when you used to put a towel on your head and pretend to be a bride? You always said I'd be right there in the front row. His voice gets even quieter. Things change, Mom. I'm not a little kid anymore. Stefan and I need to start our marriage without any complications. Complications. That's what I am now. A complication. After working 3 jobs to put him through art school. After being his biggest cheerleader when other kids made fun of his paintings. After standing up to his high school principal when they tried to stop him from taking his boyfriend to prom. Is this really what you want, Marcus? Or is this what Stefan's family wants? It's what we both want, he says, but I can hear doubt creeping into his voice. The decision is made, Mom. I'm sorry if it hurts your feelings, but this is how it has to be. How it has to be. Like he has no choice in the matter. Like someone else is pulling the strings, and my son is just dancing along. Marcus. Honey. We need to talk about this in person. Can you come over tonight? but he's already talking again. I have to go, Mom. Stefan and I have cake tasting this afternoon. I'll call you later. Okay? The line goes dead before I can say another word. I stare at my phone, trying to process what just happened. My son. My baby. The little boy who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms. Just told me I'm not welcome at the most important day of his life. I think about all the times I sacrificed for him. The Christmas when I worked overtime for 2 months straight to buy him that expensive art set he wanted. The way I learned everything I could about being supportive when he came out, reading books and joining parent groups so I could be the best mom possible. I walk to my kitchen and sit at the small table where Marcus and I ate breakfast together every morning for 13 years. The same table where I helped him with homework, where we planned his future, where he told me about Stefan for the first time with such joy in his eyes. Now I'm supposed to watch him get married like I'm some distant relative who barely knows him. Something isn't right about this whole situation. Marcus has never been good at lying, and his voice sounded wrong on that phone call. Forced. Like he was reading from a script someone else wrote. I grab my laptop and open it on the kitchen table. If someone is manipulating my son, I need to find out who and why. I start typing Marcus's name into the search engine, then Stefan's, then Philip Diavol's. If this family thinks they can push me out of my son's life without a fight, they have no idea who they're dealing with. I've been protecting Marcus since he was 5 years old, and I'm not about to stop now. But first, I need to understand exactly what I'm up against. I pull up the wedding venue's website, the florist Marcus mentioned last month, the caterer I helped him choose. $40,000. That's how much I've saved over the past 2 years for this wedding. Money I scraped together from working extra shifts, selling my grandmother's jewelry, and canceling the vacation I'd been planning for years. My finger hovers over my phone. I could call Marcus back, demand a better explanation. I could show up at his apartment and force him to tell me the truth. Or I could do something that would get his attention in a way he'd never expect. Something that would make him realize just how serious this situation has become. I open my email and start typing. If my son wants to treat me like I don't matter, then maybe it's time he learned what happens when I actually don't matter. 3 days have passed since I sent that email. And my phone hasn't stopped ringing. First, it was Marcus. His voice panicked and desperate in a way I haven't heard since he was a teenager. Mom, please tell me you didn't really cancel everything. The venue, the flowers, the catering, they're all saying you pulled the deposits. His words come out in a rush, like he can't catch his breath. I take my time responding, stirring my morning coffee slowly, while I choose my words carefully. I told you in my email, sweetheart. If I'm not important enough to attend your wedding, then I don't see why I should pay for it. The silence on the other end stretches for almost a full minute. When Marcus speaks again, his voice is shaking. Mom, that's $40,000. We can't afford this wedding without your help, and you know it. Good. Now he understands how it feels to have something important taken away without warning. Then maybe you should think about who really matters to you, Marcus. Your mother who raised you. Or some people who think I'm an embarrassment. I hear Stefan's voice in the background. Sharp and angry. But I can't make out the words. Marcus covers the phone, and I hear them arguing back and forth. When he comes back on the line, his tone has completely changed. Gone is the apologetic, worried son from moments ago. Now he sounds cold and distant again, like someone else is coaching him on what to say. Fine, Mom. If that's how you want to play this, we'll figure it out ourselves. Maybe it's better this way. At least now we know where we really stand with each other. The words hit me like a physical blow, but I force myself to stay calm. Where we stand. Marcus, I've stood by you every single day of your life, through everything. When you were bullied in middle school, when you struggled in college, when you came out and were afraid I wouldn't accept you. I have always been in your corner. Not anymore, he says quietly. And the line goes dead. I set my phone down on the kitchen counter and take several deep breaths. This isn't my son talking. This is someone who's been turned against me, someone who's being fed lies about my motives and my love for him. I need to find out who's behind this, and I need proof that will make Marcus see the truth. I spend the rest of the morning making phone calls, but not the ones Marcus expects. Instead of trying to restore the wedding arrangements, I'm doing research. My first call is to my sister Fiona, who works as a paralegal downtown. I need you to look up someone for me. I tell her, Philip Diaval, he's a lawyer, owns his own firm. I want to know everything about him. Fiona promises to dig around and call me back. My second call is to my neighbor, Mrs. Chen, whose daughter works at the country club where Philip's family holds their membership. Can Janet tell me anything about the Diaval family? Any gossip? Any stories? Anything that might help me understand what kind of people they are? By afternoon, I have a clearer picture of what I'm dealing with. Philip Diaval isn't just wealthy. He's controlling. According to Janet, he's famous at the country club for micromanaging every detail of his family's lives. His oldest daughter moved across the country to get away from him. His wife barely speaks at social events unless he gives her permission. And Stefan? Stefan has been trying to gain his father's approval his entire life, never quite measuring up to Philip's impossible standards. Fiona calls me back around 3 o'clock with more disturbing information. Philip Diaval has a reputation in legal circles for being ruthless, she tells me. He's known for using emotional manipulation and financial pressure to get what he wants. There are stories about him cutting off family members who don't follow his rules exactly. Financial pressure. Just like what he's probably doing to Stefan right now. Threatening to cut him off if he doesn't handle his wedding the way Philip wants. I'm starting to understand the real situation. This isn't about Marcus not wanting me at his wedding. This is about Philip Diaval wanting to control every aspect of his son's marriage, starting with eliminating anyone he sees as a threat to his influence. And apparently, a working-class single mother who raised her son to think for himself is exactly the kind of threat Philip can't tolerate. But Philip made one crucial mistake. He underestimated how far a mother will go to protect her child. My phone rings again around dinner time. This time, it's not Marcus, it's Stefan. Mrs. Rosalind, he says, and his voice sounds tired and strained. We need to talk. Can I come over? Something in his tone makes me pause. This doesn't sound like the confident young man who usually speaks for both himself and Marcus. This sounds like someone who's scared and desperate. Of course, honey. Do you want me to make coffee? There's a long pause. That would be nice, he says quietly. I'll be there in 20 minutes. When Stefan arrives at my door, I barely recognize him. His usually perfect appearance is completely disheveled. His expensive clothes are wrinkled like he slept in them, there are dark circles under his eyes, and his hands are shaking. Come in, sweetheart, I say, guiding him to my living room. Sit down and tell me what's happening. He collapses onto my couch, like all the energy has drained out of his body. Mrs. Rosalind, I need you to know that none of this was my idea. The email, excluding you from the wedding, all of it, that was never what I wanted. I sit down across from him, trying to keep my expression neutral even though my heart is pounding. Then whose idea was it, Stefan? He looks up at me with tears in his eyes. My father. He found out about that argument you and Marcus had last Christmas. About me moving in with him. He said you were too controlling. Too emotional. He threatened to disown me if we had what he called a dysfunctional family display at the wedding. The argument last Christmas. I remember it now, and shame washes over me. I did lose my temper that day. I was worried Marcus was rushing into living together, and I said some things I shouldn't have said. Things about Stefan changing Marcus, about them moving too fast. But that was months ago, I say. We worked through that. You and I talked about it, and I apologized. Stefan nods miserably. I know, but my father has been watching everything since then, looking for reasons to prove his point about you being a problem. When Marcus got defensive about you during that conversation, Dad decided you were a threat to our marriage. A threat. Just like Fiona said, Philip sees anyone who might influence his family members. So, Marcus knows about your father's ultimatum? I ask. Stefan shakes his head. That's the worst part. Marcus thinks he's protecting you. Dad convinced him that if you came to the wedding, you'd have to sit through Dad making cruel comments about single mothers and working-class families. Marcus thought the live stream would let you see everything without having to face Dad's insults in person. My chest tightens as the truth finally becomes clear. My son wasn't rejecting me. He was trying to shield me from Philip's cruelty, not knowing that Philip was manipulating the entire situation to get exactly what he wanted. Me out of the picture completely. Where is Marcus now? I ask. Stefan wipes his eyes with the back of his hand. Home. He's been crying for 3 days straight since you canceled everything. He won't eat. Won't leave his room. He keeps saying it's all his fault. That he should have found a way to stand up to everyone and protect both you and our relationship with my father. I stand up abruptly, anger flooding through me like nothing I've ever felt before. Not anger at Marcus, or even at Stefan, but pure rage at a man who would manipulate two young people's love to serve his own need for control. Stefan, I say, my voice deadly calm, I need you to go home to Marcus, tell him his mother is going to fix this mess, and tell him I love him more than anything in this world. Can you do that for me? Stefan nods, looking confused but hopeful. What are you going to do? I walk to my closet and pull out my best dress, the one I was saving for the wedding. I'm going to have a conversation with your father. And by the time I'm done, Philip Diaval is going to understand exactly what happens when someone tries to come between a mother and her child. Philip Diaval's law office sits on the 15th floor of the tallest building downtown, all glass and steel that screams money and power. I stand in the marble lobby, adjusting my best dress and checking my reflection in the polished walls. My hands aren't shaking anymore. The nervous mother from 3 days ago has been replaced by someone with a mission, someone who won't be intimidated by expensive suits and fancy degrees. The elevator ride feels like it takes forever, each floor marking my determination growing stronger. His secretary, a young woman with perfectly styled hair and a smile that doesn't reach her eyes, tries to stop me at the reception desk. Mr. Diaval is in a very important meeting, she says in that practice voice people use when they're used to turning people away. He can't be disturbed. I look her straight in the eye and smile politely. Tell him Aurora Rosalind is here about his son's wedding. He'll want to see me. Something in my tone must convince her, because she picks up the phone and whispers into it. Within 30 seconds, she's pointing me toward the corner office. Philip Diaval doesn't look up when I walk in. He sits behind a desk that could double as a dining table, reading papers like I'm not even there. The office walls are covered with certificates, awards, and photographs of him shaking hands with important-looking people. Everything about this room is designed to make visitors feel small and unimportant. Too bad for Philip that I'm not feeling small today. Mrs. Rosalind, I presume, he says without raising his eyes from his documents. His voice is smooth and cold, like he's talking to someone beneath his notice. It's Aurora, I say, walking straight to his desk and placing both hands on the polished surface. And you know exactly why I'm here. Finally, he looks up, and I see eyes that are calculating and cruel. This is a man who enjoys having power over other people, who gets satisfaction from making them squirm. Ah yes, the emotional mother who can't accept that her son is growing up and moving on with his life. Stefan mentioned you might come here making demands. His tone is dismissive, like he's talking to a child having a tantrum. I lean forward slightly, keeping my voice calm and steady. You manipulated my son into excluding me from his own wedding. You made him think he had to choose between his family and yours. Philip laughs, a sound like ice cracking in a glass. It's the kind of laugh that has no warmth, no genuine humor, just contempt for the person he's looking at. I simply pointed out reality to my son. When someone marries into a respectable family, certain adjustments need to be made. We can't have theatrical outbursts disrupting important family events. Theatrical outbursts, like a mother crying at her son's wedding, is something shameful instead of natural. I raised that boy alone after his father died in a car accident. I worked 3 jobs to put him through college. I've supported him through everything, including coming out and finding love with your son. My voice stays level, but I can feel heat building behind my words. Philip stands up slowly, using his height to try to intimidate me. He's tall and imposing in his expensive suit, probably used to people backing down when he looms over them like this. Yes. And that's exactly the problem, he says, walking around the desk to stand closer to me. You've made him emotionally dependent on you in an unhealthy way. Stefan needs space to build a proper marriage without your constant interference and need for attention. Constant interference. Need for attention. He's twisting every act of love I've ever shown Marcus into something selfish and wrong. The only person interfering here is you. You threatened to disown your own son unless he excluded me from his wedding. Philip's eyes narrow, and for the first time, he looks genuinely surprised. Stefan told you about our conversation? There's something dangerous in his voice now. Like I've crossed a line I wasn't supposed to know existed. He came to me because he's scared of losing both his father and his future husband. Because you put him in an impossible position where love has to come with conditions. I pull out my phone and start scrolling through my contacts. But that's okay, Philip. I understand exactly what kind of man you are now. What are you doing? He asks, and I hear the first hint of uncertainty in his voice. I find the number I'm looking for and hit call. Hi, this is Aurora Rosalind. I'd like to speak to someone about planning a wedding for this Saturday. Money is no object. Philip's face goes pale as he realizes what I'm doing. You can't possibly organize a wedding in less than a week, he says, but his voice lacks the confidence it had moments ago. I smile at him, while waiting for someone to pick up my call. Hello? Riverside Gardens? This is Aurora Rosalind. I need to book your chapel and reception hall for this Saturday. I know it's short notice, but I'm willing to pay double your usual rate. The person on the other end puts me on hold, and I can see Philip calculating behind his eyes, trying to figure out how this changes his carefully laid plans. Even if you could throw together some pathetic last-minute ceremony, he says, trying to regain control of the situation. Stefan won't go against my wishes. He needs my financial support too much. The person comes back on the line. Mrs. Rosalind, we had a cancellation for Saturday. The couple is willing to move their date for the right compensation. I look directly at Philip while I speak. Perfect. Send me the contracts. I'll have everything signed and deposited within the hour. Philip's jaw tightens as he realizes I'm not bluffing. This isn't some desperate mother making empty threats. This is someone who has thought this through and has the resources to back up her words. You're making a serious mistake, Philip says after I hang up. I have connections in this city that you can't imagine. I can make sure your little stunt backfires in ways you won't see coming. But his threats sound hollow now. Like a man who's used to getting his way through intimidation, suddenly finding himself facing someone who won't be scared off. Your connections don't impress me, Philip. You know what does impress me? Parents who put their children's happiness above their own pride. I start dialing another number. Delacroix Catering? This is Aurora Rosalind. I need full service for 200 guests this Saturday. Philip moves toward his own phone, probably planning to start making calls to interfere with my arrangements. But I'm already 3 steps ahead of him. Oh, and I'll need your premium package. The one with the 7-course meal, an open bar. Cost isn't a concern. His hand freezes over his phone, as the numbers start adding up in his head. "Where are you getting this kind of money?" he asks. And now there's genuine worry in his voice. I finish my call and look at him with a smile that probably looks as cold as his did earlier. "I've been saving for Marcus's wedding for 2 years, $40,000. But now that I know what kind of family he's marrying into, I think we need something much more impressive. Something that shows the Diavo family that working-class mothers can throw parties they'll never forget." Philip's face has gone from pale to red now. "You're doing this out of spite. To embarrass my family." I shake my head and start gathering my purse. "I'm doing this out of love. Something you might not understand. Marcus deserves a wedding where both families celebrate his happiness, not where one family tries to control and manipulate the guest list." I walk toward the office door, but turn back before leaving. "Oh, and Philip, you might want to start practicing your father of the groom speech. Because you're going to give it in front of everyone who matters to your son, including the mother you tried so hard to exclude." His voice follows me out of the office, loud enough that his secretary and the other lawyers in the hallway turn to stare. "This isn't over, Aurora. You have no idea what you've started." But I keep walking toward the elevator, already mentally organizing the dozens of phone calls I need to make before sunset. Philip Diaval thinks he can intimidate people into submission with his money and connections. He's about to learn that some battles can't be won with power plays and threats. Some battles require something he clearly doesn't have: the willingness to put someone else's happiness above your own need to control. My kitchen table has disappeared under stacks of contracts, vendor lists, and phone numbers scribbled on napkins. It's been 18 hours since I walked out of Philip Diaval's office, and I haven't slept a minute. Every vendor in the city seems to be on speed dial as I coordinate the most complicated event I've ever planned. My coffee has gone cold for the 3rd time this morning, but I can't stop to reheat it. There are too many moving pieces. Too many details that could fall apart if I don't stay focused. The florist calls back first. "Mrs. Rosalind, we can do white roses and baby's breath for Saturday, but it'll cost triple our normal rate because of the rush." I don't hesitate. "Done. Send me the contract." Next is the photographer, then the musicians, then the cake decorator who sounds like she thinks I'm completely insane for trying to pull this together in 4 days. Each conversation costs more money than I've ever spent on anything except Marcus's college tuition. But watching my savings account drain feels like the best investment I've ever made. My phone rings around noon, and Marcus's name appears on the screen. My heart jumps, but I force myself to answer calmly. "Hi, sweetheart." His voice is rough, like he's been crying or hasn't slept. "Mom, what are you doing?" "Stefan's dad called him this morning screaming about some wedding you're planning. He's threatening to cut Stefan off completely if we go through with it." I close my eyes and take a deep breath. Philip is moving faster than I expected, using financial threats to try to stop what he can't control. "Marcus, honey, I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" There's a long pause, and I can almost hear him thinking, "Mom, I don't understand what's happening anymore. First you canceled everything, now you're planning some other wedding, and Stefan's family is falling apart. His dad is furious. His mom is crying. And Stefan doesn't know what to do. This is exactly what Philip wants. Confusion and chaos. That makes everyone too scared to stand up to him. Sweetheart, do you remember what you told me when you first came out? You said you were tired of hiding who you were to make other people comfortable." Marcus's voice gets quieter. "Yeah, I remember." I stand up and walk to the window, looking out at the street where he learned to ride his bike. Where I taught him that being brave sometimes means doing the right thing even when it's scary. "Well, I'm tired of hiding how much I love you to make Philip Diaval comfortable. Saturday, you're going to have the wedding you deserve, with everyone who loves you there to celebrate." "But Mom, the money." I cut him off gently. "Let me worry about the money. You worry about being happy. After we hang up, I immediately call my sister Fiona. I need you to look up something else for me. Philip Diaval's business practices. Anything that might give me leverage if he tries to interfere with Saturday. Fiona promises to dig deeper and call me back. If Philip wants to play hardball with threats and ultimatums, he picked the wrong opponent. 3 hours later, Fiona calls back with information that makes my blood run cold. Aurora, Philip Diaval has a history of using private investigators to dig up dirt on people who cross him. He's been known to threaten lawsuits, call employers, even contact landlords to make life difficult for anyone who doesn't back down. My hands start shaking as the implications sink in. This man isn't just controlling, he's vindictive. He'll try to destroy my life if I don't give him what he wants. But then I think about Marcus crying in his room, believing he has to choose between the people he loves. I think about Stefan, terrified of losing his father's support but desperate to marry the man he loves without conditions and ultimatums. Some things are worth fighting for, even when the fight might cost you everything. I call my neighbor Mrs. Chen, whose son works at the local newspaper. Can you ask Tommy if he'd be interested in a story about family manipulation and wedding drama? I think his readers might find it fascinating. By evening, my plan has expanded beyond just throwing a wedding. If Philip Diaval wants to use his connections and resources to intimidate people, then he needs to understand that ordinary people have resources too. We have community, we have local media, and we have the power of truth on our side. I spend 2 hours on the phone with Tommy Chin, explaining the entire situation. His interest grows with every detail I share. Mrs. Rosalind. This is exactly the kind of David and Goliath story our readers love. A working mother standing up to a wealthy lawyer who tries to control his son's wedding? This could be front-page material. We schedule an interview for tomorrow morning, right before I need to finalize the last wedding details. Philip thinks his money and connections make him untouchable, but he's never dealt with the power of public opinion. My phone rings at 9 p.m., and I'm surprised to see it's Stefan calling instead of Marcus. Mrs. Rosalind, I need to tell you something important. My dad hired a private investigator to look into your background. He's trying to find something he can use against you. My stomach drops. I've lived a clean life, worked honest jobs, paid my taxes. But Philip Diaval has money to twist any story into something ugly. What did they find? Stefan? Nothing bad, he says quickly. But he's planning to make your financial situation sound irresponsible. He wants to claim you're bankrupting yourself for this wedding out of spite, that you're not mentally stable. The cruelty takes my breath away. Philip is willing to attack my mental health, my financial responsibility, anything he can think of to discredit me. Stefan, honey, are you okay? How are you handling all this pressure? His voice breaks slightly. I'm scared, Mrs. Rosalind. I love Marcus so much. But my dad is threatening to destroy both of us if we don't do exactly what he wants. He says he'll cut off my trust fund, kick me out of the family business, tell everyone we know that I'm ungrateful and manipulative. Philip's threats are getting more desperate and more vicious. A man who's losing control will say anything to regain power. Stefan, I want you to remember something. Real love doesn't come with conditions. Real family doesn't threaten to abandon you for choosing happiness over control. I pause, gathering my thoughts. Tomorrow morning, I'm doing a newspaper interview about this whole situation. Once the story comes out, your father won't be able to hide behind private threats anymore. Everything will be public. There's a long silence on the other end. Are you sure about this, Mrs. Rosalind? Once you go public, there's no taking it back. My dad will never forgive you. I think about Marcus as a little boy, trusting me to protect him from bullies and nightmares and everything scary in the world. That little boy grew up, but my job as his mother never ended. Stefan, some people spend their whole lives trying to earn forgiveness from people who were never going to give it anyway. I'd rather fight for what's right and lose than surrender what's right and regret it forever. After we hang up, I sit in my quiet kitchen, surrounded by wedding plans, and realize that tomorrow will either be the beginning of healing for our family, or the day Philip Diaval tries to destroy everything I've built. But for the first time in days, I'm not scared. I'm ready. Whatever Philip throws at me next, he's going to discover that mothers protecting their children are capable of things that surprised even themselves. The newspaper photographer snaps pictures while Tommy Chen sets up his recording equipment on my kitchen table. Friday morning sunlight streams through the windows, highlighting the wedding contracts and vendor agreements scattered everywhere like evidence of my determination. Mrs. Rosalind, before we start the interview, I need to warn you about something. Tommy says, his expression serious. Philip Diaval called our editor last night. He threatened to pull all his law firm's advertising if we run this story. My coffee cup freezes halfway to my lips. Philip is moving even faster than I expected, using his business connections to silence the story before it can be told. What did your editor say? Tommy grins and adjusts his microphone. He told Diaval that threatening the press usually makes us more interested in a story, not less. We're running this on tomorrow's front page, no matter how much money Diaval waves around. Relief floods through me, but it's mixed with fear about what Philip might do next if he can't stop the story from coming out. The interview goes smoothly until Tommy asks about my financial situation. Philip Diaval's people are claiming you're bankrupting yourself out of spite, that this wedding is really about revenge, rather than love. I take a deep breath and show him my bank statements, the receipts from Marcus's college tuition, the documentation of every sacrifice I've made over the years. Tommy, I've been saving for Marcus's wedding since he was 20 years old. This money was always meant for his happiness, not my retirement or vacation fund. Tommy nods and makes notes, but his next question catches me off guard. Mrs. Rosalind, we've been digging into Philip Diaval's background, and we found something interesting. Did you know his oldest daughter Elena moved to California 5 years ago and hasn't spoken to him since? My heart skips a beat. I had no idea Philip had another child who'd cut contact with him. Elena agreed to talk to us yesterday. She says her father used the same manipulation tactics on her when she wanted to marry someone he didn't approve of. The room suddenly feels smaller as the implications sink in. Philip has done this before. He's destroyed other relationships, other weddings, other families who didn't meet his standards. What happened to Elena's wedding? Tommy's expression grows grim. There wasn't one. Philip threatened her fiancé's job, spread rumors about his family's finances, and eventually broke them up. Elena moved across the country and has been in therapy ever since, trying to recover from what she calls emotional terrorism. My hands start shaking as I realize how serious this situation really is. Philip didn't just threaten to exclude me from one wedding. He's a man who systematically destroys any relationship that threatens his control over his children. Tommy, does Elena know what's happening with Stefan? He nods. She's flying in tomorrow morning. She wants to be at the wedding to support her brother, even though it means facing her father for the first time in years. After Tommy leaves, I sit alone in my kitchen trying to process everything I've learned. Philip Diaval isn't just a controlling father. He's someone who uses fear and manipulation as weapons against his own children. No wonder Stefan seemed so scared and desperate when he came to talk to me. He's probably watched his father destroy Elena's happiness and knows exactly what Philip is capable of doing. My phone buzzes with a text message from a number I don't recognize. Stop interfering in my family's business, or face the consequences. You have no idea what I'm capable of. The message is unsigned, but I know it's from Philip. My first instinct is fear, but then anger takes over. This man is threatening me now, trying to scare me into backing down, like he probably scared Elena's fiancé years ago. I screenshot the threatening message and immediately send it to Tommy Chen. If Philip wants to escalate this situation, then he needs to understand that his threats will become part of the public record. 2 hours later, my sister Fiona calls with more disturbing news. Aurora, I talked to a friend who works at the courthouse. Philip Diavel filed papers yesterday, requesting a restraining order against you. He's claiming you're harassing his family and interfering with his son's wedding. My blood runs cold. A restraining order would prevent me from attending the wedding, from seeing Marcus, from being anywhere near the Diavel family. Fiona, can he actually get a restraining order based on planning a wedding? She sighs heavily. With the right judge and the right connections, he might be able to get a temporary order until a hearing can be scheduled. And Philip Diavel definitely has the right connections. Everything I've worked for over the past week could disappear with one legal document. I call my own lawyer, a woman named Sarah Martinez who helped me with Marcus's college financial aid applications. Sarah, I need help. Someone is trying to get a restraining order to keep me away from my own son's wedding. She agrees to meet me within the hour, and I spend the time gathering every piece of documentation I have about the wedding planning, the threatening text message, and Philip's history of manipulation. Sarah's office is small and cluttered, nothing like Philip's intimidating marble palace downtown. But when she reviews my evidence, her expression grows fierce. Aurora, this man is using the legal system to abuse you. Restraining orders are meant to protect people from genuine threats, not to help controlling parents manipulate their adult children. She starts making phone calls immediately, trying to find out which judge will hear Philip's request and when. An hour later, Sarah has news that makes my stomach drop. The hearing is scheduled for tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Judge Patricia Hawkins will be presiding, and she has a reputation for being very conservative about family matters. Philip's lawyer will probably argue that you're an unstable woman who's obsessed with controlling your son's life. The irony is sickening. Philip is accusing me of the exact behavior he's guilty of. Sarah, what are my chances? She doesn't sugarcoat her answer. Honestly, Philip Diavel has influence, money, and a reputation in this legal community. You're a working-class single mother going up against one of the most powerful lawyers in the city. But you have something he doesn't have. I lean forward, desperate for any reason to hope. What's that? The truth, Sarah says simply. And if we can get Elena Diavel to testify about her father's pattern of manipulation, we might have a real chance of stopping this. My phone rings at that exact moment, and I see Marcus's name on the screen. My heart pounds as I answer, wondering if he knows about the restraining order yet. Mom. His voice is barely a whisper. Stefan's sister Elena called him. She told him things about their father that I never knew. Horrible things about what he did to her. Marcus, honey, we need to talk in person. There are things happening that you need to understand. But before he can respond, I hear shouting in the background. Philip's voice, loud and angry, demanding to know who Stefan is talking to. Mom, I have to go. Marcus whispers urgently. Stefan's dad just showed up here and he's furious. He knows about Elena coming to town. The line goes dead, leaving me staring at my phone in terror. Something has shifted in the past few hours. Philip's desperation is turning into rage, and desperate men with power are dangerous in ways I'm only beginning to understand. Tomorrow morning, we'll determine whether I can protect Marcus from his future father-in-law's manipulation, or whether Philip Diavel will succeed in isolating his son from anyone who might challenge his control. But either way, this battle is far from over. Judge Patricia Hawkins looks exactly like someone Philip Diavel would feel comfortable manipulating, older, conservative, wearing pearls that probably cost more than my monthly salary. I sit next to Sarah Martinez in the courtroom, watching Philip's expensive legal team arrange their papers like they're preparing for war. At exactly 9 a.m., Philip himself walks in wearing a suit that screams power and respectability. But I notice his hands are shaking slightly as he takes his seat. Your Honor, Philip's lawyer begins. My client is seeking protection from a woman who has been harassing his family, making threats, and interfering with his son's private wedding arrangements. The lawyer paints me as an unstable single mother who can't accept that her son is getting married. Someone whose behavior has become increasingly erratic and threatening. Every word is carefully chosen to make me sound dangerous and unreasonable. Sarah stands to respond, and her voice cuts through the courtroom's formal atmosphere like a blade. Your Honor, the real harassment in this case is coming from Philip Diavel himself, Mrs. Rosalind's only crime is planning a wedding for her son after Mr. Diavel manipulated the young couple into excluding her from their original ceremony. She presents the threatening text message Philip sent me, the evidence of his manipulation tactics, and character witnesses who can testify about my 23 years as a devoted mother. Judge Hawkins listens to both sides, with an expression that gives away nothing about her thoughts. When the lawyers finish their opening statements, she asks the question, I've been dreading. Mrs. Rosalind, is it true that you canceled your son's wedding arrangements and then planned a competing ceremony without the couple's initial consent? My mouth goes dry as I realize how my actions could be twisted to sound vindictive and controlling. Your Honor, I canceled arrangements that I was paying for after my son told me I wasn't welcome at his own wedding. When I learned that his decision was based on manipulation and threats from Mr. Diavel, I took action to ensure my son could marry the person he loves without having to choose between families. Judge Hawkins nods but doesn't reveal whether my explanation satisfies her concerns about my behavior. Then Sarah calls her surprise witness. Elena Diavel walks into the courtroom, and the change in Philip's demeanor is immediate and shocking. His face goes white, his confident posture crumbles, and for the first time since this whole ordeal began, he looks genuinely afraid. Elena is tall and elegant like her father, but where his eyes are cold and calculating, hers are warm and determined. She hasn't seen Philip in 5 years, and the tension in the room becomes almost unbearable. Miss Diavel, Sarah begins gently, can you tell the court about your experience with your father's involvement in your personal relationships? Elena's voice is steady but filled with pain as she describes the systematic way Philip destroyed her engagement 5 years ago. He threatened my fiancé's job, spread lies about our families being incompatible, and convinced everyone that I was making a mistake. When I tried to stand up to him, he cut off my trust fund and told me I was no longer welcome in the family. Philip's lawyer tries to object, claiming Elena's testimony isn't relevant to my case, but Judge Hawkins allows her to continue. Miss Diavel, are you aware of the current situation with your brother Stefan's wedding? Elena nods and turns to look directly at her father. Philip is using the exact same tactics he used on me. Threatening financial support, manipulating family relationships, trying to isolate Stefan from anyone who might support his independence. The only difference is that Mrs. Rosalind is fighting back instead of giving up like my fiancé did. The courtroom falls silent as Elena's words sink in. Judge Hawkins studies Philip's face, and I can see her beginning to understand the real dynamics at play here. Mr. Diavel, would you like to respond to your daughter's testimony? Philip stands slowly, and when he speaks, his voice lacks its usual commanding tone. Your Honor, Elena has been estranged from our family for years. Her perspective on family matters is understandably skewed by her own choices. But Elena isn't finished. She pulls out her phone and begins reading text messages. These are messages my father sent me last week when he learned I was coming to support Stefan. If you interfere with this wedding, you'll never be welcome in this family again. I'll make sure Stefan knows you're trying to sabotage his happiness. Does this sound like a man who's concerned about family harmony? Or someone who's desperate to maintain control? Judge Hawkins asks to see Elena's phone, and as she reads through Philip's messages, her expression grows increasingly stern. Mr. Diavel, these messages suggest a pattern of using threats and ultimatums to control your adult children's decisions. Can you explain why you believe this behavior justifies a restraining order against Mrs. Rosalind? Philip's composure finally cracks completely. Your Honor, This woman is destroying my family. She's turning my son against me, interfering with our traditions, making a mockery of everything we stand for. What we stand for, Elena says quietly, is control through fear. Mrs. Rosalind is guilty of loving her son enough to fight for his happiness. That's not harassment, Your Honor. That's what real parents do. Judge Hawkins closes Philip's restraining order petition and looks directly at him. Mr. Dieval, based on the evidence presented today, I'm denying your request for a restraining order. Furthermore, I'm ordering you to cease all threatening communications with Mrs. Rosalind and to refrain from interfering with any wedding arrangements she has made. Philip's face turns red with rage, but before he can speak, the courtroom doors open and Marcus walks in with Stefan right behind him. My son looks around the room, taking in the scene. His future father in Law's legal defeat. His future sister in Law's courageous testimony. And his mother sitting calmly in the defendant's chair. Mom, he says, his voice carrying across the silent courtroom. I'm sorry I ever doubted you. Stefan walks directly to his father, his face set with determination. I've never seen before. Dad, I love you, but I won't let you destroy my marriage the way you destroyed Elena's engagement. Tomorrow, I'm marrying Marcus with both our families there to celebrate. If you can't accept that, then you'll have to live with the consequences. Philip stares at his son for a long moment, then storms out of the courtroom without another word. As we all file out of the courthouse, Elena hugs me tightly. Thank you for fighting when I couldn't, she whispers. Thank you for showing my brother that love doesn't have to come with conditions. Tomorrow, Marcus will marry Stefan in the wedding I planned with my heart and my savings. But more importantly, tomorrow a family will be healed instead of broken, and two young men will start their marriage knowing that real love means supporting each other's happiness, not controlling it.